Happy New Year, my friends. When I think about New Year's, I think about a fresh start, so I figured I'd start 2024 with a palette cleanser mani. And when I think about a palette cleanser, I think about something simple, fresh, and clean. So in today's video, I'm going to take it back to basics and do a simple, solid dip powder application. So if you want to see my process for basic dip powder application, stick around and we'll get into it. For my mani today, I'm going to be using the color Muse from 915 Aesthetics, and when I was thinking about doing a simple solid one color mani, 915 Aesthetics is the first company I thought of. She has amazing products overall, but her solid dip powders are my absolute favorite, and I feel like that's what she excels at. They're super easy to use, they're super beautiful, and she has such a great variety of solid dip powders. And I'll also be using my 915 dip liquids because when possible, I like to stick with the same brand, although I can mix and match if I choose. Jumping into my mani, I always like to start by stirring up my dip powders before I use them just to fluff them up more, especially when it comes to solids, because depending on how long they've been sitting, they can settle a little bit. So I always like to make sure to fluff them up to make sure that they're easy to dip into. Your dip base is your glue, which makes your dip powder stick to your nail. So you start with applying your dip base to your entire nail. And then once you've got your nail fully covered, you're going to go ahead and dip into your powder. So I dipped my finger into the powder. I am tapping off the excess. And then I'm taking my precision tool and I'm making sure to clean around my cuticle area and sidewalls just to make sure I don't have any product on my skin. Getting product on your skin can cause lifting, so you want to make sure your application is as clean as possible. So I'm removing most of the liquid from my dip base brush, so you can see me wiping it against the side of the bottle. So you can see here, there's very minimal liquid on my brush. And then I start with my brush about at the midpoint of my nail. I brush downwards towards my free edge, and then once I've got that, I'll start painting upwards towards my cuticle line. And that way that avoids flooding, because when you first put your brush on the nail, that has the most amount of liquid. So brushing towards the free edge removes some of that excess liquid, and then you work your way towards your cuticle area with the minimal amount of liquid. And then once you've got that full even coverage of dip base on your nail, you're going to dip into the powder. And you can dip in a couple times depending on how much dip base you have in to make sure that it's fully absorbed. And then always make sure you're cleaning up your cuticle area and sidewalls as well. Dip base is an air dry product, and the dry time is going to depend on the brand that you're using. I find for the 915 Aesthetics dip base, it's a little bit of a medium dry time. So I don't have to work super quickly, but it's not super slow to where I'm waiting on it to dry before I can dust off the excess powder. So it's a good dry time for me, but it's really going to be a matter of personal preference on how slow or fast you want your dip base to dry on you. And I'm doing this real time so you can see that I'm not rushing around. I don't have to hurry up and apply my dip base. I can take my time, make sure I have an even coverage on my nail, and I still have time to dip in the powder and get good coverage. The dry time you need may also depend on just what you're doing. Like if you're doing an ombre, you probably need a little bit of a slower dry time so you have time to work on that ombre. But for something like a simple solid dip powder application, you probably don't need it to be too slow. Unless of course you're a beginner and you want to work on practicing a more flawless application of your dip base, then it is advantageous to have a slower drying dip base. So it really just all depends on your needs and what you're doing. I have been trying to work on slowing down when I'm doing my manis and really working on perfecting my application, because a cleaner dip base application saves time in the end because it leads to less cleanup. I may not need to use the precision tool as much or at all, and it also leads to less filing and buffing that's needed after the fact. So after I finish dipping all 5 of my nails, I'm going to go ahead and dust off the excess dip powder. It's had plenty of time to dry. I like to use a fluffy brush. You can also use a stiff brush depending on what you want, but you want to make sure that you're removing that excess powder. And so now I'm ready to get into layer 2, which is going to be the same process. So I've got a little bit of dip base on my dip base brush. I'm starting around the midpoint of my nail, working my way down towards my free edge, and then back up towards my cuticle area, making sure I've got a thin, even coverage of the dip base on my nails. And then once I've got that covered, I'm going to go ahead and dip into my dip powder. You can continue on with as many layers of color as you want, depending on the thickness you want for your nails. I like to do 2 layers of color and then do a 3rd layer capping in clear, but that's really just a personal preference for me. I like to cap everything in clear. Some solids you don't need to cap in clear. I just worry about buffing through the color and making it look splotchy. But really it's a matter of the solid you're using and whether or not that'll happen. But I just like to play it safe and cap everything in clear. And because I use peel base, I don't really have to worry about the longevity of my manis because they pop off within a day or 2. So 3 layers of dip powder is enough for me. After my dip and clear, I like to make sure that my dip base is fully dry, and then I will go in with a stiff scrub brush and give my nails a good scrub. This removes any of the excess clear dip powder and helps reduce any graininess or cloudiness that may happen with excess clear that's left on your nails. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply my activator. And activator is what cures your dip powder. So it hardens your dip powder enough for you to be able to file and buff. If you filed and buffed before your dip powder hardened or before you applied any activator, it would be gummy and you wouldn't be able to file and buff it. So always make sure that I apply a generous amount of it. So I'll go in with 2 layers of activator just to make sure that it's penetrating all 3 layers of my dip powder. going to wait a full 2 minutes for my dip powder to harden, and I'll know it's ready to file and buff when I hear this hollow noise. The 915 powders apply so smoothly and evenly, you can probably see that there isn't a lot of filing and buffing required because my nails are pretty smooth. But I am going to do a little bit of cleanup. So I'm starting with my thin nail file and I'm just cleaning up around my cuticle area and sidewalls. So I want to make sure that my cuticle area is clean. I want to clean up my shape a little bit, crisp up my free edge just to make sure I've got that nice square shape, as well as at the sidewalls as well, making sure that it's nice and square. Once I'm done cleaning up my shape, I'm taking a regular nail file and I'm using the 180 grit side of this file and I'm going around the perimeter of my nail. So really I'm working on contouring and kind of making it look a little more natural. So it's kind of removing a little bit of the bulk, although with 3 layers of dip powder, it's not a large amount of bulk, but I just want it to look a little bit seamless. So I'm cleaning up around the perimeter of my nail just to clean it up a little bit. And after I'm done with that, the last thing I'm going to do is just give my nails a really quick buff using this buffer block. So I'm buffing the surface of my nail, and I also want to make sure that I'm buffing at my free edge because I don't want any sharp edges where I could accidentally scratch myself. I wiped off the dust from filing with some isopropyl alcohol and a lint-free wipe, so now I'm ready to get into my dip top coat. In order for your dip top coat to dry, you do need activator, so I'm applying one final layer of activator to all my nails. I don't need a generous amount, so it's just going to be 1 layer of activator, and then I'm going to wait a full 2 minutes for my activator to dry before I get in with my dip top coat. So for my first layer of dip top coat, I'm going to apply it in 2 to 3 really quick swipes on each nail. In between each nail, I'm going to wipe my brush on a lint-free wipe. By the time I'm done top coating my 5th nail, I'm ready for my 2nd layer of dip top coat, and I'll know because my first layer starts looking a little bit dull and wrinkly. So for whatever reason, you need 2 layers of dip top coat. For my 2nd layer, I try to take my time a little bit more, making sure I'm covering my entire nail, and I also want to make sure that I'm capping my free edge. That also helps with the longevity of your mani. Now for the first layer, I made sure I did 2 to 3 really quick swipes. I can take a couple more swipes on my 2nd layer, but I want to make sure that I'm not overworking it and taking too many swipes because that can lead to streakiness. So I usually stick to 2 to 3, maybe a 4th or 5th swipe, but that's all I keep it at. I don't do any more than that. This dip top coat self-levels beautifully, but I still don't want it to be too streaky. As always, I'm going to finish off my mani by rehydrating my cuticles with my Scales of Mermaid cuticle oil. And exciting news is she now offers samples, and you can get samples in any of the mainline scents, and they come in 5, 10, or 15 packs. I have this sample of Not Your Basic Vanilla, and I love it because I was kind of nervous to try it because vanilla is one of those scents that gives me migraines. So I love that I can get this little itty bitty bottle and I can try out the scent, see if I like it. If I like it, I can get a larger size, but it's not committing to anything larger. So I think these are really great, and I'm super excited she now has samples. And don't forget, you can use my ambassador code Jeannie10 to save 10% off your orders. Is this seriously not the cutest roller bottle you have ever seen? I love that it comes in a roller. And I am happy to say Not Your Basic Vanilla did not cause me a migraine, which is what I was nervous about. So that pretty much wraps things up. Let me know what you think about these dipping basics. I've been thinking about whether I kind of continue it and do dipping basics with other types of dip powders like shimmers and glitters and chunky glitters and foils and things like that. So let me know if that's something you'd like to see. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. It lets me know to continue creating content like this. And it also helps YouTube recommend me to others, which helps grow my channel. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I upload content like this every Monday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.